When other people see you explode in anger at a situation with anger that is disproportionate to the situation, it's scary. People get scared. Hi, my name is John, and 8 years ago I was diagnosed with ADHD. I am here to help you. So let's go. ADHD and emotions. Big topic, lots to talk about, a lot of personal stories. So, ADHD and emotion. Let's go. So I want to talk about three things. How does ADHD affect emotions? Because ADHD and emotions have a very interesting relationship. 2, I want to talk about examples from my life, how I experience emotions as an ADHD person. And 3, how I try to manage my emotions as an ADHD person. ADHD people have a problem with the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is important in regulating emotions, impulse, planning, things like that. And there is problems in that part of the brain. So ADHD people are just bad with emotions. And in particular, at least in my experience, ADHD people feel emotions more strongly than normal people. ADHD people feel emotions more intensely than normal people. And that leads to many different interesting experiences for ADHD people and for the people around ADHD individuals. ADHD people feel emotions just like anyone else. The whole spectrum of emotions, same as anyone else, but they feel them to a stronger degree. What do I mean by that? The emotional highs are really, really, really high, but the emotional lows are also very, 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 very extremely low. For an ADHD person, emotions can change very quickly. In 1 second, they feel very happy, but something could happen, and then in the next second, they can feel angry, they can feel upset, they can feel worried, they can feel anything in the span of a few minutes, a few seconds, very small span. Frustration can be explosive. Joy can also be explosive. Happiness, sadness, things like that can all be very explosive. Some other things to note. A lot of ADHD people are very sensitive to rejection, very sensitive to negativity, to criticism, to negative comments, and this is very commonly known as rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Basically, ADHD people, when they are perceived to be criticized or rejected, they feel very strong negative emotions, which can be a very bad experience for ADHD people, and I've experienced it myself many times. But I will go into this into more detail in another video. Examples of ADHD and emotions in my life as an ADHD person. One thing that highlights my experience as an ADHD person is that in my past, when I was a child, and even up until now sometimes, I got very angry and very frustrated very easily. And it caused me to react disproportionately to the situation at the time. So, for example, for me, and I think for a lot of other ADHD people as well, is that when something isn't really working the way I wanted to, or if something suddenly changes when I'm working on something, I get very frustrated. So for example, maybe I'm working on my computer, typing a document, working on a video, writing a song, doing something on the computer, but then it freezes. I get frustrated. And sometimes my frustration is disproportionate to the situation that I'm going through at the moment. I remember when I was young, when I was a high school student, I was working on my computer in my room at the time, and my computer just stopped working. It froze or something like that. And I got so disproportionately angry that I threw my mouse at my closet. The mouse hit the closet door and it made a big hole in the closet door. Most normal kids would probably say, hey, my computer's frozen, that sucks, but I gotta restart my computer. Hit restart, walk away for a few minutes, come back, and then get back to work on whatever they're doing. Sometimes even now this happens to me as well. Maybe I'm rendering a video or working on something and it freezes. And this feeling of frustration arises in me. And thankfully nowadays I don't do the things that I used to do when I was a teenager, like throw things, but I still experience that feeling of strong frustration, thinking, man, why did this thing mess up? Now I got to redo this again, and this and this and this and this. And the feeling of negative emotions are strong. In the same sense, I feel positive emotions like joy, happiness, love very strongly as well. And I think to a degree that is much larger than most average people. For example, perhaps there's a song that I really like. Because of that song, I get really excited. I listen to it like maybe every day, like 5 times a day for weeks, for months, even years sometimes. Because I feel great listening to that song, because I feel joy, happiness, because those songs give me that dopamine hit. And I feel so strongly sometimes. There are times when I listen to a song, when I listen to music, go to a concert, go to a rave, things like that, and I hear a song that I really love, I feel almost like a high. I feel so much joy, and there have been times where I listen to a song that I really love, that I really feel a connection with, and that I would cry or experience very deep, very strong emotions. And I think, for some normal people, for some average people, they may experience that, but for me, at least for myself, and maybe perhaps for other ADHD people as well, I feel that very strongly in my body, enough to elicit strong emotional reactions like crying or joy, even a high like that. And moving on from music, relationships as well. If I meet someone that I really like, who I really enjoy hanging out with, who I have a lot of fun with, I just become obsessed with them. I want to hang out with them all the time. I want to become their best friend. I want to, know what they're doing and spend a lot of time with them. Whereas I think normal people, they would want to become their friend with this new cool person, but not to the same degree as an ADHD person might. This new person often becomes a new obsession for me, and it can become unhealthy. Such a focus on a single person, on a single thing, can become unhealthy. Okay, moving on, how to manage, regulate, control your emotions as an ADHD person. And these are things that I do. The first thing I think that is very important is exercise. Exercise helps you control your emotions in many different ways. First of all, exercise lowers cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, so as a result, you have less stress in general, and you're able to regulate your stress more easily. That leads to better control in frustration and anger, and less occurrences of frustration and anger. At least in my experience, this is what I've seen. One other thing too about exercise is that exercise can help sort of get rid of that excess energy that ADHD people tend to have, and prevent that energy from going into those negative emotions. So all that energy that an ADHD person may have, normally that would be pushed into negative emotions like frustration or pushed into negative emotions like anger, is now displaced outward into a more healthy activity, into exercise. Number 2, after exercise, would be medication. Medication is very good in regulating your emotion, specifically because it regulates the functions in your prefrontal cortex where all this emotional dysregulation occurs. Medications like Concerta, Ritalin, Adderall, they really help with emotional regulation, and they really help you sort of control the volume knob on your emotions so that when an emotion arises, it's not out of proportion. It doesn't explode. After medication, meditation. Meditation, mindfulness, this comes up in many different forms, many different ways. I'm sure you've heard of it. But what mindfulness is the ability to sort of recognize an emotion, a feeling, an idea, sort of rise up in your body, rise up in your mind. And it's the ability to sort of objectively observe this feeling, this emotion, and sort of carefully judge how you want to react to it. Something comes up, you look at it, you say, well, okay, interesting. What do I want to do next with this situation, with this feeling, with this emotion? And then you move on based on what you observe from that feeling, from that emotion, whatever. So a mindful person is able to be aware of their feelings and act appropriately to those feelings. On the other end, someone who's not as mindful may not be aware of the thoughts, the feelings, and emotions that come in through their head, and may simply just react without any sort of thought process to why they're reacting the way they're reacting to this feeling, to this emotion. Mindfulness is a very good tool in helping regulate and control your emotions as an ADHD person. Now, the final thing that I think is very helpful and very important is getting understanding from the people around you. Teaching the people close to you about how your emotions play out as an ADHD person. You need to go to the people close to you, your friends, your family, your very close coworkers, and tell them, hey, I'm an ADHD person and sometimes this happens. Sometimes, my emotions get a little bit out of hand. Sometimes I overreact. Sometimes I do this. I'm really sorry I do this sometimes, but I don't mean anything bad towards you. I don't have any ill intent. It's just that this is how my brain works, and it's unfortunate that it works in this way. Whenever this happens, can you just sort of be mindful about it and don't take it personally? And maybe sort of after things have calmed down, we can work together through this problem. Giving others that awareness about your condition, giving others that awareness about how your emotions work can really help you feel safe. It can help you feel safe, supported, and it can also help other people's perception of you. Now that you've educated the people around you, your friends, your family, your coworkers, the people you care about, now that they know about you and how your emotions work, they're able to discard any negative perceptions of you and instead look at you through a different lens of, okay, this person has a problem, as opposed to, okay, this person is just a bad person. This person is just cannot control their emotions. I don't like this person. They're able to discard those things that they thought about you and really understand the truth about you and your emotions. And with that comes understanding, awareness, and I think a better sort of feeling towards who you are and how you act. And that understanding will help you feel more supported and feel that others are more aware of how you are. So I think that's those are the big things I think that would help you and your emotions as an ADHD person. One thing I do want to say too is that, as an ADHD person, emotions, when left unchecked, when allowed to go rampant, when negative emotions, especially like anger, angry outbursts and things like that, when they're allowed to go unchecked, they can cause a lot of problems, a lot of trouble for the ADHD person, and for in particular, interpersonal relationships. Because when someone else experiences anger from you as an ADHD person that is disproportionate to the situation, they get scared, they get concerned. When they see you blow up about something, when they see you do something risky because you're an ADHD person out of anger, it's scary, right? It affects people's perception of you. Now they think that you're a dangerous person. Now they think that you're a reckless person. Now they think that you're emotionally unstable. And it damages relationships. So that's one of the big important reasons why ADHD people really need to be mindful of their emotions. It has impact on others' perception of you. And it impacts the people around you. It impacts your relationship with your friends, with your family, and things like that. This can be very, very traumatizing for someone who's very young, right? Imagine you're in elementary school, you're a young child, you can't control your emotions, and you show that you're angry all the time, that you're frustrated all the time, that you're shouting at kids, you're fighting with kids maybe, other kids look at you and they're scared of you. They don't want to be your friend, right? That's why it's really important to try and control the emotions and at least know about the strategies on how to try and control emotions. Emotions are important, but emotions that are disproportionate to the situation is not healthy. And it can impact others' perceptions of you. So it's particularly damaging to children, because then they learn at a young age that nobody wants to be with them, that peers reject them, and it leads them to being alone. But of course, they don't know this as a kid, so it's important as parents to be mindful of this as the child grows up. One other thing too is that it's particularly impactful for young kids, but even for adults. If you lose your temper in the workplace, your coworkers don't want to work with you. If you lose your temper, if you get frustrated in front of your classmates, that you're working with on a project, they don't want to work with you. So that's why it's important to be mindful about your emotions, and I think that the strategies that I mentioned earlier can really help you with that. So I hope you can take something away from that.